Okay, for last, get started. Okay, we're gonna call to order this ad hoc short-term rental working group meeting, the city of Port Aransas, Tuesday, October 26, 2021, at 3:02 p.m. At this time, comments will be taken from the audience on any subject matter. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and also state your name and address.
We don't have anybody on the sign up sheet, but if anybody else wants to make any comments.
Okay, moving on to items for consideration, discuss, take action on the following 3.1. So we discuss solutions to issues regarding short-term rental parking, occupancy, and nuisances such as trash, noise, etc. So, I mean, we've all broken up into our groups and discussed these same topics, and I've watched the YouTube videos for the different groups. You know, kind of seems like we were discussing, like we all kind of have the same, you know, thoughts and ideas with some differences here and there, but I don't know the best way to go about this. If we want to kind of go to each group and ask them what their thoughts were, what they kind of came, their takeaways were from their meeting regarding each of these things.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, that make it tough. Maybe I went through and I sent out to the people from my group, I sent out basically a list of our ideas, what highlighted from each of those different categories. And we went through that, so maybe that'd be the best way.
Yeah,
We could do that with each of them and then meld them together like this. There is a lot of overlap, like you said, if you watch both the meetings and, yeah, I mean, there's.
Somebody brief back from each group, and if Nicole or Carl, you guys will just kind of hit the highlights, and we'll see where the overlap, because I suspect there will be, you know, that way. Those become kind of focal points to maybe let's have a little bit better.
Okay, well, let's start with parking. I know that there were, in my meeting, some comments on parking from the public, and I kind of took away that parking and trash, toters, kind of one of the biggest issues that, you know, I heard about. So maybe we can start with your group, since y'all already kind of laid out everything. If
I
you
mean,
wanna do this.
with this organization, and I did send this out, Mike, and we went through some of the points, so I think this is an agreement. This group, please speak up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I shouldn't have to word. But bottom line is that the nice thing about parking is a very objective enforcement condition. That is, it's easy to see from controls. It's real easy to go around and see whether or not people are obeying the disobeying parking laws. The points that came up, vehicles must be parked in appropriate spaces and garages. The difficulty is that many of the spaces and much of the indications we have at locations, number of parking spaces, for example, don't fit reality of today's vehicles, right? A dual will not come close to fitting one of those parking spaces, okay? So we have issues there.
Inappropriate places in garages, so with our ordinances that don't count garages
No,
in the place,
no.
did you guys talk about?
We discussed that, but it was one of these things, I mean, Mike, we sort of just glossed over it because it's sort of hidden in place, yeah. But sometimes it can be, sometimes. Yeah. The one thing that really came up was just the proliferation of, what do you call them again, golf carts, I think. Golf carts are definitely an issue, right? So you bring people down and they think, oh, I have 4 parking spaces and I can also get 4 golf carts. That's important. So that kind of communication, let's see about, I think, that came up. And then there was also discussion of enforcement of parking on landscape. Are there any city ordinances that are objectively applied if someone parks on a lawn? That's what I thought. So that does not.
If they do it, that's the, again, the challenge, like so many things, is by the time we get word, it's probably a hit or miss.
They're allowed to park down there, right?
Well, the people are allowed to park on their own lawn, but not the neighbors.
Right.
Right.
or not in my.
Correct.
I think if someone's parking on their own lawn, that's not. a big-
But you get into a fact of, you know, it's an STR, they're parking on lawn, and they're not parked, they don't have permission to park on lawn.
That's a property manager.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly correct.
And it's never an area that's, it's never counted in the initial calculation. Like I said, they have to be, whatever the requirement is, they have to meet that on an improved surface. The limit is that it doesn't stop somebody from physically pulling up the correct.
Yes. We also discussed street parking control that is creating residents only or creating times which parking is not allowed, right? So that would be accomplished through striping, signing, and possibly just for a certain number of hours, right? From 1 to 6 a.m. maybe, right? Midnight to 6, something like that. Or just, you know, prohibition at all times. So that came up with discussion. Residents could, of course, be exempted through the use of window stickers, which would be very similar to what we use on the beach if necessary. And there was discussion if there are really reasons to get residents.
Residents can still block emergency vehicles just as easily as STRs.
That's why I'm bringing up both pro and cons. And I am trying to be incredibly objective. I know the rest of you aren't, but I am. Okay. And then, finally, there was a discussion that, you know, if we do increase enforcement and prohibitions on parking on streets, it may push over into parking lots, stores, etc. Okay, Tim didn't think that would be an issue and thinks there's some way out of it, and I had some discussion. But in fact, that was something that came up in the park. So, I don't know about the other groups, but is that similar kinds of gains?
Like we had a similar conversation about it. I know you brought up possibly parking passes for all rentals, not just ones that the HOH requires it. Again, with, you know, having those parking passes, but do the police have any, you know, or the tow people have any right to?
Or you can certainly put an ordinance on there that says you gotta have parking passes.
I don't know if they can do an ordinance on private property, but you could, right? And just talking out of the box here, you could say that, you know, if it's in the contract, when they write the contract, on the STR contract, you have to have a parking pass. Then if there were a vehicle there, it would be a fact of trespassing, but again, that would be, I think, common. Chief,
So,
am I right, Rick? Or-
So we have, Village Block, a good example of an HOA that did implement a parking pass type process that you talked about. I believe it's 2 per rental unit, and they do enforce towing if they're properly signed, which is again a legal specification as to how that's worded. But they do tow vehicles, and if they're not displaying that. We can enforce, we recently modified our ordinance.
But that's not the city towing it, it is the HOA towing.
That is correct, yeah,
The distinction.
right, so on private streets, the private HOA can petition, city council to request that we enforce all traffic ordinances on their streets, and it's approved by resolution. Provided that, what is it, Chief, 75% of the owners of the properties in the respective HOA agree.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact number, but it's a pretty easy process.
Right, and we've had a couple that have gone through that, and then you guys approve it, and then we can enforce that on private streets. Public streets, of course, like I said, we can only enforce towing if it's a life safety, fire lane or something else. Again, unless there's an ordinance passed with respect to parking in the public ways, and then it's a code enforcement issue that Carla or PD can enforce.
I also, Margaret brought up I feel like we have a need for a public parking lot. I know that y'all discussed that at council meeting. I just think we're one of the few that I know of, you know, big tourist destinations that don't have an option of public parking. So I see a need for that. Who has them? Like Fredericksburg, I know has them. I've gone to, you know, Hawaii and Maui, and they've got them. You know, I mean, there's options for overflow. I mean, we can tell them, you can only bring 4 and the golf cart counts, and you can go to every rental on my website and see that I specifically say how many vehicles can fit, and I say standard size vehicles, but I don't always listen.
If they show up with more than what you say, what do you tell them?
I tell them, you have to move it, and you can take it to on beach RV parking, that's the only option I give them, but not a lot of them want to park it in an open lot that's not secure.
And so if they don't move it,
They usually.
normally,
Somewhere.
once you get
Now,
involved, they
now,
move it.
as an HOA manager for T-Sands, I see people parking in my parking lot that don't stay there, but we don't have parking passes, so it's hard to know for sure if they're not supposed to be there or not. We don't have a tow sign because our HOA doesn't want to have a lot of signage, so, you know, so I think there are people that come and park in our parking lot.
And if they park on the street, there's nothing that they can do to stop them.
Well, if a car is legally parked on the street, I don't see what the problem is with that. Even if the whole street is lined with cars, if they're all legally parked, and if emergency vehicles can get by, I don't see what the complaint is there. In our group, I think we asked you how many people have been ticketed. Well, nobody, because nobody's really breaking the laws. People are just parking where other people don't want them to park, right? So either we need to revise the no parking zones and make more no parking zones than what we have, or the parking isn't as big of an issue as we all said. Because if you block someone's driveway, it's an offense already. If you're more than 18 inches away from the curb, it's an offense already. If you're blocking a fire hydrant, it's an offense. If you're parking in your own yard, that's not an offense, and do we want to make that an offense? I don't know, but right now, the cars are all parked legally. We just need to say, hey, these places, we don't want cars parked, and then make that illegal. One of the things we discussed was farming out the enforcement of that to a towing company that can come in here and just rip cars off the island that are parked in places that they're not supposed to be parked.
How many people would be are reducing the number of places even out on the street, for instance? All the streets, Miami,
Well, you know, on our street, we live on Leslie Lane, and there's not a parking problem on our street, so I'm not the best to talk to that question right there, but I would say whether parking should be allowed on that street or not should be on a street by street basis based on whether they're room to park cars.
So maybe what needs to be done is an evaluation of the current parking.
Exactly, or the enforcement of the current rules and then analyzing the data that we receive off of that enforcement and figuring out where are the issues? Are they all in Old Town? Are they all in this area over here? Are they all on this street? Because I think you're gonna find patterns evolve out of that process that will bring to light the problem. And it's not all over town. My street, we don't have a parking problem.
Rick, do you know, I mean, where are the clusters? of
Well, I mean,
problems?
to me, the easy answer to Barney's question is gonna be any property that's older. Because they're gonna predate our parking requirements, our parking ordinances. And with the growth of the city, they're the ones that are gonna probably be hit the worst.
I mean, is that a potential, or is that what you're experiencing when you get complaints?
Complaints are all over the board. All over the board. We actually I don't think we get as many complaints from those older areas. And they figured out a way to manage it. Maybe it's just understood, that, you know.
maybe they get a little bit of gas.
I think they get a pass. We don't give them a pass. We just don't get I mean, like I said, most of the time it's complaint driven, so it's where we're getting them.
Yeah, I think
So what do we?
most calls will probably go through.
I think the big thing with parking that you're trying to solve is the amount of cars that are being brought here and the amount of people that are being brought here. So a house that house that's allowed to sleep certain number of people and have 4 cars. Audrey tells them you can only bring 4 cars. They bring 6 cars because we make it very easy for them to bring 6 cars and possibly more people because we allow that on-street parking. That on-street parking went away. They can only bring 4 cars because there's nowhere else for them to put those cars. That might translate to less people.
So the problems we're trying to solve are things like where people that park in my driveway without my consent. Problems we're trying to solve are things where people just within the last 2 months that park in no fire lane, no fire lane parking area, block the street, and then an emergency vehicle came in and parked next to them, completely blocked access to our. So act as if there's nothing that we're trying to solve, I don't think it's a fair comment. I mean, I've made
But
a
it's
comment.
pretty,
since
it's a
the
fair
beginning.
comment in that you just decided two things that were just not.
And they're both
enforceable.
illegal.
Yeah,
But true
they
in the
are, but the
situation, so.
difficulty with them, just heads up, the difficulty with both of those situations, and they occurred late at night, okay? So for example, if we don't have any enforcement, this does get down, I think, a lot to the bottom line here, is the enforcement part of this. Both of these occurred, you know, that person that parked and blocked the fire lane, that was probably around midnight, because I went to bed and wasn't woke until around 2 o'clock in the morning, with pictures I have here to show it, but about 2 o'clock, there was an ambulance parked next to it, blocking the lanes completely, woke me up because it was right outside my window, right? So, I mean, those things do happen.
Chief,
Now-
what would you say to that situation where you've got, you heard that scenario, right?
And part of it comes down to staffing, part of it comes down to our historic, policing concepts. We are generally complaint driven. So our officers are not at 1 o'clock in the morning driving neighborhood streets looking for parking violations. And some of that's staffing and some of it's just low interest historically police the city.
But
We're looking for a big shift if you want one officer patrolling the streets looking for parking violations. And that's going to be a shift in our police philosophy.
But if that, for one of your patrol officers, if that was called in, hey, I got a car blocking my driveway.
They've come out and they've ticketed.
Yeah, we just leave on it.
Okay, well, is that not enforcement?
I would say that, I mean, I guess if you expect me to be the meter maid, okay. You're expecting everybody in town that doesn't rent to go around and enforce and cite people and call the police. I don't think it's fair for the normal residents of Port Aransas to put that on.
It's not.
But therein lies the solution. You just tell, I mean, you just raise taxes, hire officers that patrol and simply look at it, because we are complaint
I
driven.
think that's a reasonable thing to say.
How would they know that that was the car that was illegally parked in your driveway?
Because
Unless
it
you
was
pulled
the
it
part, I think that's fire, another, this is on fire.
in. Oh, okay, I thought.
Yeah, I've got
I thought you
pictures
were
of
talking
that.
about the
It was
driveway.
parked right in the fire.
The two, so.
Yeah.
Going in the driveway, unless you call it in, nobody will know.
Yes.
We
And then
discussed,
tow that thing. you know.
we discussed alternative of ways of enforcement. What about like association of people, neighborhood, whatever, providing their own, all night person, golf cart.
Sure. One of the things,
Yeah, it's not on the city.
one of the things was, would the chief prefer all the property managers hiring their own personal security forces to go around town and monitor some of these problems? It sounds like a great idea, but the chief may not think it's a great idea to have many private security forces all over town.
What they're really doing is snitching.
Right.
I mean, they're snitching.
Well, maybe we could get Scott's comments on that. What would you think?
Well, without having any data to support anything, I would ask if that's a tax that you'd like us to look at and let us do some analysis on it and see if it makes sense or not. I don't think it's something we ought to discard without some sort of research. So
Just a little background, that's what they're doing in Galveston. They formed like a private board of vacation rental owners that have all gotten together. They pay dues per year to be a member of the board, and then that board has taken it upon themselves to provide private security to supplement the municipal security for some of the smaller offenses that don't require a peace officer. And some of the property managers kind of enforcing the regular rules that are on the books whenever you do
And they could do things like noise, they could do things like
parties that are.
parking, they could do things like trash, right? Which are the three big topics. And I hope, I mean, I also don't want to overpower your comment. This is something that's not a big problem. You tell me, I mean, parking, if everyone here doesn't think it's a big issue, go ahead. I know I have a loud voice, but I also don't want Facebook to drive what we're doing. It's got citrus, okay? Is
I'm trying
parking a big issue or
to,
not?
I mean, you jump back to what you didn't say anything about parking, you said occupancy.
Right, I think
Okay, and
that's,
people, and that's different than parking.
Right. I think they're intermingled.
So what about the size? We allow a parking space at 18 feet,
9 by 9.
9 by 18. What percentage of people that come to the beach are some longer than 18.
We
Not
went out-
actually,
we went out and
not
measured some trucks.
Okay, and how far are they? No, and what are
actually. That's a pretty good size.
1920?
No. David's truck was 1810,
So he fits.
You've got a big Tundra.
and he's got a big Tundra,
Let's-
a
okay,
double
a
cab
double cab,
Tundra.
Right.
It would be hard, I think, to make an argument for a 21-foot parking space or.
Again, if you're trying to come up with any kind of average at all.
Would it be a-
Granted, we got the dualies, but is that the average vehicle? And for every dually, how many of these silly little,
They can
they have a smart car? How many of those little smart cars, you know?
RVs, those.
So when we advertise, we have parking for 3 vehicles. It has to be truthful. It's not 3 vehicles, 3 boats, and a golf cart.
Yeah, but
If everybody posted on their rules, because we can do it on our own websites, the RVO, Airbnb, multiple times, the initial listing, when they're picking what they want, is to say, if it's a problem, a golf cart equals a vehicle. And golf carts are what, 12, I think the 4-seaters are 12, 6-seaters might be 14. And then, at least it's another thought that people coming to visit put in their head, wait a minute, we can't, there's 6 of us going, we can't take 6 trucks. There's parking for 3 vehicles, we gotta figure that out.
Where is that place, by the way, in your ads, I guess?
There are places
Buried at the
down there,
bottom,
no,
or
there's
is it
actually
top?
places for parking, most of that kind of stuff is gonna be down at the bottom. Up at the front, it's gonna be
Right.
Close to the
Great.
beach,
coastal, come to our blue, white sandy beaches and blue water, that kind of picture you paint. And then, but
It's by your pet policy.
it's down there by the pet
Parking
policies, but everything is automated now where there's reminders that go out 72 hours. If the city is going to get that scrubbing software, put that in for scrubbing. Or, hey, I got 41 feet, double 41 feet, that's it, 41. And so you don't have people hanging out.
Yeah, but the problem is they're allowed to park on the street.
Well, your street thing, because trash and street go together, if you put 2 vehicles that can't fit in driveways on the street and it's trash day, the trash man does not watch, he does not go up over the $70,000 truck, pick up the trash cans and dump it. They drive right by it.
They gotta be accessible. They were
Right, now you
accessible.
missed it. If you put the trash cans in the street, you will not be able, with double cars are parked like that, trucks are parked like that. The trash man probably might not be able to get down with 2 trash cans sitting on the other side. Because I'm not gonna put my trash can close to my vehicle. Because when we talk about putting more trash cans with more houses so we don't have a trash problem, I think you're creating another problem because now we got more trash to pick up where you have to say, how big is it? When I go and travel, they're like, you got 2 spaces, and you gotta stack them behind somebody. And it isn't, now maybe I'm sensitive to it when I go, but I'm not gonna rent something, if there's gonna be 10 vehicles, I'm not just gonna try to put 10 people into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. You rent something that has 10 vehicles, where parking spots must be, listed as part of, these are the listing requirements, because if you're gonna spend the money to go hire somebody to scrub it, you can put the verbiage that somewhere goes down there that says, this is, parking.
So how do you enforce that without a parking permit and without red striping the street that says no lawn?
You're gonna have to get participation from the people coming in and the management companies. I mean, yeah, we don't have enough police officers to go up and down each street, writing tickets, hauling, knocking on doors, saying you're in here. We have to change some of the concept and the paradigm shift. One of the challenges that's gonna come up in short-term rentals, all the houses that have boardwalks. How many times do you get to hear, oh, the house has a boardwalk? Mile marker 38, where did you stay on the beach? We had to drive to 63. in the golf cart, so they're not even, the beach is filling up, when it gets 3 deep, you know, and we don't have Sandcastle open yet, when Sandcastle opens, those people are gonna get in their car and drive down mile marker 80. And we do have to think about that, and it could limit, doesn't help your day trippers coming over, and more people are gonna come, but how much stuff goes on to the beach, because when the beach is full, I mean, there's some ornery people. I mean, there'll be people that say, I'm not coming back here because there's no place on the beach. Well, come October 27th and get
Or
4,000 feet.
behind it.
So, quick question on the current parking ordinance, since we don't count garages at all in the calculation.
In the requirement, and what provided, right?
So let's say you come up on a short-term rental and there's a golf cart in the garage. Does it count as a parking vehicle?
Well, we don't.
We
check
don't
the
look
parking
at
vehicles as short-term
So
rentals.
let's say we're at the point where it sounds like we're about to, right? Would that count? I mean, if you have a garage that can accommodate, I mean, I have a garage that can accommodate 4 vehicles. So if they're inside, the door closes, do they count?
I guess who's counting?
Well,
Whoever's driving by, right?
maybe what you're asking is, and I thought this would come up in the discussion, is that we've never counted garages as part of the off-street parking. But if a place has a garage, are we at a point now where we say, you know what, clear out the fishing stuff, clear out the boxes, make it available? If you're dumping the cars out on the streets, and I think maybe, is that where you're going with that?
That'd be
I'm
ideal.
surprised it hadn't come up, or maybe it did, and I haven't heard it yet. You're right, there's a lot of garages. And the reason we didn't count them, because that's exactly what happens, is that they get filled up. Mine was an example.
Well, if they could fit more cars, they probably.
I didn't need it.
Clean their stuff out.
Most of them have a walkout.
Yeah.
No.
That's where they keep their golf cart, that kind of thing.
I keep all of mine open, I give them all access.
And I
to it.
did, because when I was a landlord, I
We
did.
have most people park their actual trucks inside the garages. We did put them all big enough to wait.
But what's happened is that some of those maybe weren't in the business of short-term rentals when they were built, they are now.
Right.
Is it time that we relook at that 100-year-old ordinance and say, you got a garage, make it available? Why not?
How would we enforce that though? I mean, that just becomes something else that it would
Again,
be
it's
pretty
tough.
difficult for us to.
A lot of the solutions aren't gonna be easy.
It makes it more attractive to the guests renting, because if you give me 2 parking spaces in the garage and I've got 4 outside, guess what? I can bring 6.
I know in Village Rock, when they were doing all, they got really strict on everything. We had to meet them over at the property and we had to show them every parking spot that we have. And like, I had one that the owner kept the one side of the garage locked up, and they said, nope, because this is a 4-bedroom, you have to have 4 spots, and he needs to clean that garage out, and we did.
And to answer your question, I mean, we've gotten much better, I mean, about, on renewals, going out and doing an inspection of a short-term rental, how much difficult is it to say, ready to garage?
Yeah.
This has to be available. We have an ordinance specifically prohibiting anybody from blocking, their required parking. In other words, if you have under house parking, but you put a picnic table and a barbecue pit there, it's a violation. You
So
gotta
let's
keep it
take
available.
that down as a point, and move on, and then you have a question?
I just wanted to pitch in one idea that we had at our meeting was, as a concept, if property managers can separate the maximum occupancy of the building from the rental occupancy of the building. So if you can have 24 people in the building, maybe you should be renting it to 18 people or 16 people, not the full occupancy of the building.
And
if-
legal occupancy is ours would allow right now.
What I mean is, when you build a home, you have an occupancy set with the fire department, two people per bedroom, plus 4 people in common areas. That's the maximum occupancy of the building.
Our short-term rental trucks.
Okay. What I'm saying
It's
is,
gonna be less.
if a house can sleep 24 people because it's 8 bedrooms, or 20 people because it's 8 bedrooms, but it only has 2 parking spaces, maybe you don't rent it.
Well, there's another topic.
And so,
Another
if
conversation.
it-
But you have to
so
have 1
if-
parking per bedroom.
so this is what
Not
I'm saying.
retroactively though.
No. You guys are confusing the building codes with what I'm talking about is what we're talking about, short-term rental regulations, or regulating the ability of short-term rental managers to regulate the property. When you build your house, you have to have 1 parking space per bedroom. What if you have a house that sleeps 24 people today, but only has 2 parking spaces? Are you going to rent that house to 24 people, and how are those people gonna come there and park all their cars?
Right now, that's exactly what's happening. We have no way with on-street, legal on-street parking.
So my suggestion is to limit the occupancy of the rental to however many cars can fit in the parking spaces on the property. And so if you have a property that can only fit 3 cars, their occupancy is 12 people, because that's all you can fit for parking at that property. And so that's just common sense. How are you gonna rent a place to someone with 30 people if you have 2 parking spaces?
I understand
And
what
so,
you're saying.
so what my enforcement side of that is, whenever you apply for your short-term rental permit, you supply a parking plan. If you want to allow parking in your garage, then that could be part of your parking plan, but your garage, as you said, needs to be empty and ready for cars to be parked in there. If you don't, if your garage is full and closed, you can't have that on your parking plan, and you need to support your occupancy with parking somewhere else on your property.
Those are great, brilliant observations. That's one of those tough lift. That's gonna be the tough lift, because a lot of people.
So
I'm
I talked to
not
property,
disagreeing,
I
I'm
talked
just
to a
saying
lot of property managers.
That makes sense.
There are not a lot of property managers that want their properties maxed out to full occupancy. And what happens is you got a 24-person party in a house that has 8 bedrooms, and then they go to the beach and meet another group of 24 people and bring them all back to their house, and now you got 50 people in the house. So I think if a short-term rental wants to have 30 people in their house, not only do they need to have the bedrooms, but also the parking spaces off the street to accommodate that amount of people. Now, if that group gets there and one of them parks their car on the street and it's legal to park the car on the street, that's fine. I mean, you can't say, you guys can park on the street, but you guys can't. But if everybody can park on the street, that's fine. What I'm talking about is limiting the number of cars coming onto the island by saying, hey, look, this house has 3 parking spaces. You can only have 12 people sleeping here. I don't care if you have 20 bedrooms, you know?
But what's the reluctance of doing parking permits? So now, instead of just the philosophy of you got 3 cars, you give them 3 parking permits, it's got an expiration date. They can park in the parking areas,
The problem with the parking
or,
permit.
hang on, or on the street with parking permit.
Well,
You can't park on the street without a parking permit.
a parking permit is issued by a private company and enforced by a private company. So you have the right as a project manager to issue parking permits if you want to. And then you have a right to enforcing those rules. But you cannot issue parking permits to your tenants and then have the city come in and tow their vehicles because their parking permit, they don't have one.
If it was a city.
If it's a city
It
one.
was a city back thing.
So you're talking about a street
I
parking
think that's
permit?
what he's
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, that's what
I
I'm
think
saying.
if it's legal to park on the street, anybody who wants to park there should be able to. And we shouldn't limit the people based on whether they have a sticker or not. That increases the enforcement aspect of it, because now you've got people looking for stickers. It also increases the education aspect of it, because you have to train all the citizens and all the guests of this new rule that you're putting in.
But that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to
We're trying to
re-educate,
change.
change everybody's behavior,
Change the visitors.
bring less
mentality.
cars onto the island. And if you limit your parking and you make it clear about the property managers that you can only bring 3 cars, 3-bedroom house, 3 cars. This includes on-street parking. And here's your permits, and I give it to you, and it has an expiration date. You're gonna get a ticket from the city.
So you give the property managers city parking passes to hand out at their own leisure to whoever their guests
They
are.
come with the registration, the STR registration. That way you catch the people, the 1,000 people that rent that don't have their thing registered. You catch them,
That's a great point.
you catch them.
And then the fact is, then police don't, we can, and I wish we had one person here, but they weren't going to make it, but we contract the towing company, so the police don't have to be involved in writing it.
That'd be great.
You know,
The
so.
towing company
towing
can just go look for
The
the.
towing company would just drive around, they don't have the permit,
How many towing companies do we have in town?
one, but this would be, but this would be.
We only need
Is there enough land to park?
We only need it for 1 year.
Yeah.
Work's gonna get-
Well,
And also the fact is, this would be a big enough contract that someone on Island they might bid on it too.
We used to have it.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't think that's an issue.
Want to do it locally.
If, oh, possible.
They can get more cars that way.
Oh, it's possible, yeah.
The problem is their storage capacity.
Yeah.
Right.
And what about residents, you know, if you have Thanksgiving or, you know, some kind of gathering and you have your whole family coming, what do we do about that?
Do residents?
But it's
get parking
solvable,
passes?
that's a good
Do
point, but
residents
it's still
get two parking
solvable.
passes?
Yeah, I mean, so residents would get, you know, year-round, a year-round pass, I mean, I guess, year-round parking.
Yeah, if my mom's coming in.
Well,
town,
residents
we
can
be able to
block
get a
emergency
res-
vehicles by
Yeah.
parking on the
Right.
street
Yeah.
just as easily. as
Yeah, but then,
short-term rental.
but then the tow truck could tow if they block the street.
So
But if
the
a
answer is.
car with
when
a
you've got
pass
family
can park there,
members,
why
then
can't a
they
car
might
without a
stuff
pass
that's-
not?
Yeah, and that's not a good.
Doesn't make any sense. If that parking spot is viable as a good place to put a car,
But
why do you need a sticker to park
Because
there?
we're trying to eliminate over occupancy, trying to eliminate problems with pickup trash, mail delivery problems.
Yeah, you're using that as a.
That's your-
as a
Yeah,
solution
but
for
Traffic,
other-
we heard
other
citizens
issues.
say it's getting
Traffic.
crazy,
Yes.
just trying to get down the road. I mean, it's not gonna stop them coming, but you don't have to bring. So if there's city overflow parking, are people allowed to go park in the marina? Is that a city place to go without road
It's not a
traffic?
public parking lot.
Okay.
There's a provision that they can park there. And it's designed, I mean, it's geared in spirit for boat and trailer for so many days. I think it's 3 days. And after that, they gotta pay. But that puts a huge burden on the harbor master for keeping track.
Okay.
And a beach parking permit does not allow them to park overnight on the beach. It does
Yes.
But he wants to leave. the
3 nights.
feature.
For 3 nights.
for 3 nights.
Out of any
Depending upon-
21,
depending upon the
out
tide.
of 21 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They may still need the tow truck.
Back to a rust bucket.
Yeah, and so what's the conclusion, since you're chairing this, what are our conclusions on parking, I
I
guess?
mean, one is communication to the guests and having the proper
I
advertising.
mean, over exaggerate to get the
Yeah.
change in. Because everybody's gonna be happier when people aren't parking in front of people's permanent residence. The second homeowners that come down and the house next to them, second homeowners are coming to stay. And now there's all kinds of cars sitting in their parking space because nobody's been there. And even for guests, when they sit there, who went by the rules, brought their 3 cars, but now they show up finding
They can't find any place to park.
they can't because somebody did it. It's a mindset that changes over time.
Right.
I completely understand that. My idea is to say, hey, if you're a short-term rental, you need to justify all your parking off of the street. My idea is not to give short-term rental people permission to park on the street by giving them a permit. It's to reduce the number of cars coming here. Not say, hey, here's 3 passes, go ahead and park on the street. All your cars should be off of the street. This house that you come to, it's got 6 parking spaces. You have plenty of room to put a boat or whatever you want, but there's 6 spots.
That's all the signage.
Yeah,
It's striping. We do
Is
signage and
anybody
striping or not?
willing to lower their occupancies, the owners of these houses, if you're getting
I
the
think
same
it's a
price
personal
point?
choice.
That's what I mean.
Some people don't want to max out.
Yeah.
We personally didn't want to max them out in Ocean Village. The max is 12, and we kept it at 10, just because we didn't want it. But there are owners that say, I own 4 houses. If I don't have this thing rented 250 days a year at this price, I'm gonna lose it.
Yeah.
And I don't care if they're coming, but talk to the property management.
There's also people with huge families and they like renting those houses for 30 people because they can bring their whole family.
Well,
They know they own big houses.
It's time for them to move up
Or get to.
or rent more together. I mean, we have-
I'm curious how many houses actually sleep 30 people, because I don't have any of those. The highest one I have is 18.
There's not many that sleep.
Well, so here's a good example, and this happened.
Maybe a few that sleep in, like, the large
Yeah,
one.
and so let me tell you what prompted the change in the parking ordinance. Because, again, this phenomenon came on its quick, this short-term rental, but the house on Acre was one that comes to mind, right catty corner, big house, we saw the advertisement while the construction sleeps 20.
Right.
At the time, that blew us away.
And it
You
had
could
two-
think
it
back,
had
and that was how
required
many years ago?
2 parking spaces, and that was
6 years ago?
2015.
Yeah, now, they provided more, but
They
at
did.
that time, they only needed 2 parking spaces.
Right.
And that
And
Yeah,
it's a fire hydrant, right?
we couldn't believe it. We saw it, like, it was under construction, they were already advertising.
What stops a homeowner from just asphalting the whole lot in front, not the whole all the way around, but just making their whole 50 feet a parking lot?
Right now, nothing, hence the dilemma between pervious surface, green space, and our parking dilemma. Therein lies another.
So there are impervious ways to do
There
parking.
is,
We
there
did
is.
at our house, and so
Absolutely.
that could be a requirement of the city that all parking should be impervious.
We're kicking that around, I think that's a great idea. If you need more than X number of spaces, rather than asphalt the whole thing, you gotta break it up with pavers up, you're right. That's not the way it is now, but.
We need to
What
move
about
on.
signage and striping? That was my final point. Anybody agree on signage and striping? Are you looking at
Can I ask one-
evaluating it or what?
One more thing, I want to back up, because to me, it's a big one. Steve's here. So, talking about occupancy, you've only got 2 pages. I want to hear, you guys are here, chime in. If you were to go to your owners and say, hey, we know you just built an 8-bedroom house, you only have 4 spaces. Well, what do you think the pushback would be?
You know, it's, as Audrey mentioned, it's a personal preference. Each owner, as we interview an owner, they're all different. They either want occupancy, they want to rent it as much as they can. Well, when I want to reserve it for myself, I really don't care. I just want to pay for it to sell. So we try to understand what their wants and needs are. But there is a high number of these people that are all about heads and beds. I mean, there is that group, but
The big group?
no, I think it's probably 35–40% really want that. But
I think that's getting bigger as.
yeah, and
more-
these are investment homes.
Exactly.
Should we let that drive our decisions?
Recent
I don't think so.
are
I don't think
forcing
people-
people to build
No,
bigger.
I mean, we basically have,
I mean,
yeah.
we now have to have 5,000 foot lot in order to, we gotta go up.
I think one of the things we talked about in our group before was, where are these problems? Categorize them. Is it a property management company involved? Is it the owner involved? The one that blew up on Facebook 2–3 weeks ago, that was the owners, that were there, that were parking all over the place. It had nothing to do with anybody renting or any part of an STR problem. It was just these people that were owning it.
What's the suggestion from number of parking places? What's your,
Well-
you're sitting here and you're saying, so.
No, I mean, I think that's to me, that's a big shift. Don't you agree to do that? And we've always talked about it. It would be taking away that retroactive allowance. And my first sense was it'd be huge pushback, but it does solve the problem because everything spins back to occupancy. Number of people cause the parking, number of
Do
people
you
cause
think that would
traffic.
have enough pushback for them to create the parking that they need for their nonprofit?
I mean,
That's the other thing.
I
They have
have
the
a-
option of adding parking to their
Right.
pocket.
I
for
think
their
this
place
forces
if
them
they
to
need
add the parking that their house requires.
Open up the garage, whatever, so.
So what is the recommendation then, I guess, from the committee?
I still think there needs to be more research, more data.
Well, let's at least get something written down.
But it is a solution, it's a really,
It's a
I
possible
think we should
solution.
allow people to park in garages.
Yeah.
So what would-
allow or
And,
make.
and also,
Well, I mean.
That's my suggestion, provide a parking plan
That's
to
another
apply
good
for the
idea.
permit, and your parking plan must support your occupancy.
So, okay, so provide a parking plan with permit,
On your
and then,
With your permit
how
out.
many per bedroom, or is it?
Well, I would say, I mean-
What is it, one space per what?
Well, they would still have to meet the
4
building.
people per car, you got 5 parking spaces, that's a 20-person, is all you can fit there.
I mean,
That's what I'm throwing out.
there's
at the
bigger,
top of my head.
I got an SUV, it's 7 people, I mean.
Well, there's cars that fit too, so
But
we're
most
talking
of the
an
time
average.
when 20 people come, it's not 5 cars.
Right.
If 20 people are coming to the house, typically it's not 5 cars.
I'm for limiting parking, I just don't, I don't tie that to occupancy, and that's when you tie itself to occupancy, so it's bad.
Yes.
But you do it by, you parking spaces, 1 per bedroom.
Which already have.
So we don't have it on this retroactive,
Yeah, chief,
1 per bedroom retroactive.
chief, go ahead.
You're talking about adding these parking plans in place. If we have 4,000 rental units, it takes 20 minutes per unit to review those plans. You're looking at a half an FTE just doing plan reviews.
Well, keep in mind though, we're expecting every renewal, as they come up for renewal. Now, we may not get to all of them right away, but we're laying eyes on, and I've cross-trained a couple of staff members, so we'll be able to get to them faster. So we're looking at every short-term rental when it comes up for registration, looking for illegal bedrooms, real legal to cleanse the garage. If it's full of crap, make them open it up. So, I mean, we're doing that during daylight hours.
So there's only so many hours in the work week, so everything we had on there should add more time for those inspections.
No, I appreciate that.
And all.
No, right now we're just in the solutioning phase though. So if we can come up with ideas, then we look at them and see which one, and evaluate them and see which ones are the most reasonable.
Right, and there may be
This
some
might
that
not
staff
be the most-
attention. Yeah. And we
My
understand.
whole thing again with parking, I'll tell you another thing, I did bring up the parking, in my opinion, is always the leading indicator, there are gonna be problems here, okay? When I'm sitting on my porch and watching what's going on our subdivision, you start to see 1 car, 2 car, 4 cars, 10 cars, you know something's gonna happen, right? It's like the leading indicator, right? Okay, and
You don't think it's Bible study?
haven't seen that yet.
Oh,
I was
they still do
wondering.
Tupperware, they still do Tupperware parties?
So.
Okay, so for
Hey, Audrey.
parking, yes.
I'm gonna bring up something we talk about 4,000 potential renters. A lot of those are single family properties. I mean, it's a smaller percentage that are single family dwellings that have street parking versus, I would venture to say it's 75-25. So 75% or maybe even 60% are condos, townhouses that are private parking lots. You know, you start throwing in the sandcastles, the commons, the village walk that are not really under this particular issue. I think we're talking a pretty small number. In our group, we talked about like Royal Sands where Dave lives in that area. It would make sense that that HOA hires a person and you have somebody in your development that called me wanting to be on a golf cart with a flashing light going around solving problems for Royal Sands. And I could see it, the same person doing it at Mustang Royale. But I think we're losing the scope of the problem tremendously in percentages. Because if you go down 11th Street, how many houses are right there on 11th Street that can cause a problem? How many on Station Street? It's really, a lot of it, what do you call these? These are the CUDs and the townhome complexes. There's a lot of problems there, believe me. I have to deal with it, but it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. I think this is a minor problem in comparison. Just, that's my opinion, because I have about probably 150 that would fall. I probably have more than that. I guarantee you, over 60% of what I manage is not a single family house. And those frankly tend to have more parking. They don't tend to have parking problems. It's the 1 or 2 every weekend that shows up on Facebook that gets everybody's attention. And if you drive through Royal Sands, which I do a lot, I drive through Mustang Royale, I can see those potential problems, but they're not a huge percent. It's a small percent.
I don't think anyone, when we first started off on this STR discussion, I made it personally very clear, I think everyone knows, it's a small percentage of people that are caused. 95% is what I've always said of our guests here in Port Aransas are absolutely wonderful. I agree that I want to come back. Okay, we're looking at how do you affect that 5%.
They all have a lot of cars.
But that 5%, they could be in anything. They could be in a house, a townhouse. So I think we need to, and that was what we brought up, is we need to categorize. We need to categorize these problems. We need to have a criteria that says, hey, Scott, his group says, yep, that was a property management, that was an STR, that was an owner, that was a local. Who created this problem? And if we understand where the problem is, maybe we red stripe that particular street. Don't try to throw a blanket on it because we say the word 4,000. We just included, my opinion, over 3,000 townhouse condo complexes that really are affected.
Yeah, but part of the way we got into this mess is because we weren't looking to the future. We have a subdivision going in on the south side of town, it's around 1,000 homes and possibly 900 will be rentals. We've got other subdivisions on the horizon. Decisions we make today are going to affect those down the road. But it's much better to do it right up front than try to speak to it for the next 30 or 40 years. So we have to think long term, not just what's out there today.
And if we're gonna make changes, some of those changes may not be able to be affected, or may not be properly affected overnight. It may be something that we gotta steer the ship a little slower. We didn't get into this mess overnight. And I think there's maybe a legal reason that we may have to unravel it a little bit slower too, so.
That's why we're having all these
Right.
workshops.
Yeah.
So Audrey, I would say you better go on to the next one.
Yeah, we've been on this topic for quite some time, but I do believe that more data and research needs to be done before we make a bunch of big changes to things.
We're going to get that, yeah.
That's the
The
plan.
guys, the cavalry's coming, right?
Yes.
We should do data, we got data. She gave it to us.
No parking. I mean, I think there was one trash violation, a citation, so.
One in
That's because the
20 and
call,
21.
I call, and then it's dealt with.
Right. And that's what in my group I brought up is just everyone working together in communication. So if you see an issue, the signage will help, which we've already been putting signs up, but I know some people aren't. Call us because we don't want issues and we want to deal with it, and we will as soon as you let us know. We can't be just like the police can't be everywhere 24/7 monitoring everything, but it's complaint driven, and when we know, we deal with it.
So before we move on, can we all agree that reducing the number of automobiles is a good thing to make a goal? Reducing the number of automobiles, or reducing occupancy or whatever, they have several ideas.
Yeah, maybe through a messaging campaign
And
and
then
education.
Dale's got the right thought too. First of all, have it on that advertisement and see if you can nip it a little bit there.
I think we all
See how
do
that
that.
goes.
Pretty much all the main companies we have, 2, 3,
You
4.
already have it on there?
It's on there.
I mean,
Every one of them.
on the small houses, I used the word cars. I didn't do vehicles.
So
On one house, I measured how far it was because
So it sounds like you guys are already all doing.
Yeah.
But there's not something that says a dog cart equals a vehicle.
no, that's
A boat
me
equals a
pushing the
vehicle.
issue, but that's a problem.
That's a problem.
Because,
it is.
I mean,
I can't tell you how many calls I get saying, we just rented this house, we're only allowed 3 vehicles. There's 6 of us coming with 6 vehicles. Where can we park those vehicles?
Most of the time, it's still.
We can only
And
bring
they,
3.
and they know it. But this person's coming from Florida and this person's coming from.
Okay, so they're
wherever.
all coming, and they're
They're all
going to do
coming.
what they want to do, so we need a public option for them to park their vehicles.
But at the same time, are the citizens of Port Aransas willing to purchase, plan, build,
To help your short-term.
to help your short-term rentals?
Well, I think there's plenty of short-term rental owners that do it, and I know there's a lot of locals that are upset about the parking situation too, so this is a solution.
But Kim, but keep in mind, most every city that we visit or has that parking lot, it's white.
Mhm,
Money.
yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, but that has to justify, the use
If
of
you have
that
the
parking lot has to justify that. Yeah.
If people are gonna use it.
Yes, yeah.
By Harbor Island. And.
Fill up the cars.
We
Yeah, but I don't think the city, I don't know if we'd ever make a recommendation that the city provide that public resource without us being recouped.
Right.
Because nobody that's coming, I would venture to say, nobody that's coming to the city right now that we're talking about is coming from a city that doesn't have paid parking anytime you go to their downtown. San Antonio, Austin, Houston, Dallas, they're used to it. They're used to paying for parking
And
anytime they go.
And they have tow truck companies that
And they're
read your car faster than you can blink.
We need to move on to occupancy, which I know some of this is already crossed over. I mean,
Occupancy, when we went through our group, it was harder thing to
yeah.
to track down, because you get into this when people say, hey, I've got a party, right? I've done this. You go over to a home that's way over capacity. Oh, they're just here for birthday.
Yeah, it's just that they
They're just,
guess.
they should be some limitation. I don't know how to do this. Put it in the STR contract, in my opinion, a limitation in the contract saying, hey, there are no more than 12 people allowed in this residence at any time. I don't care.
I think they tried that with the Austin,
I-
short-term rental.
I don't think that the city can do it, but I do think the companies can put it in their contract.
I think almost everybody has.
No parties,
No
no this,
parties,
no that.
no nothing. And we do get special permission sometimes when they say we're having a wedding on the beach and they're just gonna come over for a short time, you know, but it does, in our contract says it.
So in
No
that case,
parties.
who's doing the enforcement and the?
We can't.
That's my point.
Right.
But several municipalities, I looked at this and it was on, I was drafting the original, and there's several municipalities that to this day have one that count comes at 10 p.m., 11 p.m., pick a number. But let's just say, for argument's sake, 10 p.m. 10 p.m., there can't be any more. You're gonna have that party, then it's got to end by 10.
I think if you're gonna have a party.
Or 11, or what I'm saying,
It's worse.
that's when it starts.
Yeah.
Well, that's why a lot of these set it at 10 p.m.
How do
You
they
know.
enforce that?
It's a tool in the toolkit, just like the no alcohol during spring break. Because if you've got a rowdy group on the deck and it's after 10 o'clock, then that's an opportunity for them to go in and say, time to shut it down.
Can the
because it's
police
not allowed.
legally go in
Scott?
to the residence?
Chief?
That's, maybe, you get maybe answer. If we see a violation like people on the net, yeah, we should enforce that to their point of view. If there's a bunch of people inside the house, then we're gonna have to probably get a warrant or send it inside the house.
But do we care if everybody's inside at that point, after 10 o'clock? They're not out, who's counting, who cares?
Depends on how they got there.
There's a caveat with that, the rental companies can establish a rule. And although we can't enforce the rule per se, we can accompany the rental people while they enforce the rule. And if their contractors are not abiding by the rule, the rental company can either evict them or ask us to remove them under, office of trespass.
My experience has been is that the property managers, correct me if I'm wrong, is that there's gonna be a handful of houses, let's say a few houses, that end up being the chronic violators. That's the house that's got the reputation, and it's kind of a low hanging fruit. They're easy targets because that's where the calls come in each time, and it won't take long to target those. Yeah,
That's what we're all
That's what
after.
the
We
STR
want to know what those houses
It's
are.
the tool in the toolkit. We don't have to enforce it on everybody.
But it is enforceable by the management company. And then the chief just said that the police could accompany them on the
So that's
enforcement
how you
of
answer
that.
the question.
There you go.
Nobody got any strikes in the last 6 years. We created the SDR for 3 strikes you're out. We talked and said there are some problem properties and we can use this. Did that, what was done in 2015 or 2016, solve the problems on those homes? You did put a strike or did it, but did the problem still exist as it did 5 or 6 years ago?
We hardly had a chance to get started.
No, I know, but did the rule, the ordinance fix the behavior? At whatever properties y'all are thinking about.
Were there ever any strikes given or any permits revoked? No. So
But
if
y'all
the
were
rules
thinking
in
about
place and it's not enforced, it's
So
not
where's the
enforced.
point, right? Because it's a rhetorical
It's a-
question. It obviously hasn't.
It's the performance and the city puts money because we're going down this short-term rental and there's only more people coming. We have to invest in ourselves.
Without categorizing these problems.
No, but
Yeah.
in doing those,
Yeah.
you're gonna find out this is it.
Oh, I agree.
And, I mean, if you get called in 3 weeks, every weekend with this home.
Yeah.
You
Gotta
gotta,
show up in the database, that's gonna be billed, that's gonna be used. You know, the city employees have worked with paper and a report over here, maybe, and a report over here. So there's no way to pull it together. You could in your memory thinking, well, that's the party house. But in reality, nobody knows which is the biggest offenders. It could be one of mine.
Other than
We
the
need to know
isolated
that.
areas and everything.
We need to know which ones are the problem.
Which is why all of this has led to what we just did with this third-party finance company that can connect those dots, because that's what they do.
So you have software.
If you need to heads up here, we've got about 30 minutes left. We need to be done here by
The only
4:30.
the only thing I worry about, Rick, is not being able to connect the police calls to the code enforcement.
But if it all goes through the compliance company, and then the escalation path or de-escalation path is following that, then it's
Yeah,
all
but if
work.
somebody, if
The
somebody
short-term
calls about calls go through, if they all do, but if it's a noise complaint that goes directly to the PD is not gonna stop and say, go call this.
I thought that's one thing that this compliance company is going to do, is communicate to all residents, that call them first before they do.
Well,
I mean, yeah,
Unless
well,
it's a
I
life
understand
safety help.
Yeah, I think
But,
that those
but
calls.
Chief and I have talked about it, we've got to come up with a solution that connects his after-hours reports to us so that we can connect those dots, and that's just something we've got to figure out.
Because
Should
typically
use-
his are the worst.
It better
You know,
use
the
this
ones that-
database that we're putting together, and that's the whole intent of that, right?
Software, that's worldwide.
So that should be the primary central driver for all this, I would think.
But there are some calls that PD has to be involved in.
Of course.
Say
And
somebody-
they could be short-term, and they
If
could
somebody's
be short-term.
Health and
Right.
safety, right?
If somebody's fighting in front of a short-term rental, that first phone call is gonna go directly to the police.
It's a health
If
and
that,
safety.
if that's not.
But it should somehow
when
be
the police
recorded
are
back to.
there,
them.
And that's what I'm saying, we need to connect those dots
That's
to make sure that that's.
So with occupancy, most properties have an occupancy rule. You can't have more than 10. I think an issue is management companies need to start enforcing that rule. And in order to enforce the rule, management companies need to know how many people are in their house. I don't think the problem is us that know what's going on at the properties. It's those that don't know what's going on at their property. There's a big issue with a management company who rents to a 10-person property, or an owner, not just a management company. But if you rent to a 10-person party and they come with 15, that's one issue. If you don't know that they came with 15, that is a bigger issue. And I think that's the issue that we have, is a lot of management companies and owners don't know how many people are at their property.
If they don't accompany to them. to the
And so,
property,
yeah,
what-
if you have a remote check-in, if you don't have cameras, if you don't have any way of checking on how many people are there, how do you even know that you have a problem?
Well, for one
You said
person
you
brought
just
up
add
the
cameras in the driveway where you can see.
That's what we do at our.
They do have noise level meters, I think that was.
Yeah,
brought it up as
I've,
well.
I've bought those for, some properties in sensitive areas, if you will. Where I haven't put it in place yet, but, it's gonna tell me if something outside goes over 70 decibels, then already I know, okay, I get a text, I gotta go check on that.
Are they inside or outside?
You put it inside and outside.
Yeah.
You have
There's
decibel
several
meters
companies
inside
that
and
do
outside.
The company that I chose is noise aware.
Yeah, there's one called Party Squasher.
Yeah, we don't like to put cameras all over our houses. I don't really want to see what's going on inside, but I do want to see how many people are walking in the front door.
Exactly. And you know what? We had people come to our place before with more people than what was on the reservation. A simple phone call, it's fixed. It's not a big issue if you get it right when it happens. What becomes a big issue is if you don't know that it's happening, then they have a party that night with 40 people there, and then it becomes a snowball effect from that
So
point.
then it's, becomes the citizens being the property managers and stuff. But doing that privately, not telling it on the city.
Well, I think it needs
I
to
mean,
start
you
with the
have to have
manager,
it.
and then if the manager says, hey, you guys have too many people, you need to leave, and they refuse to leave, there comes a point where it has to escalate to a city matter.
But Chief, that's when you said that,
But to
you
check
could
all that out.
assist a property manager in enforcing their own occupancy requirements, right? If they need to ask somebody to leave.
Yes, that's correct, we do that.
And they can do that by phone, correct?
I think you want the presence.
Well, so let's say there's people that manage from out of town, they've identified on their cameras that people are violating the rules.
There's not supposed to be any
But
of
They
it.
there's
gotta have
supposed to be someone here.
They've got
They have
somebody
to-
local
they have to
within
have
1
somebody
hour.
An hour.
So the local representative that has to be there.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not advocating that you just call the cops and say, hey, go kick these people out, right? That's not gonna work. What we need to do
is try to solve the problem on our own
Sure.
first, and if we can't solve the problem, if it escalates to a point where it's a drunken mess, there's comes a time where somebody with the higher authority has to get.
And I would assume that tonight, that time when you said, okay, we have, just got to pick up the phone like the cops.
When it
Come
comes
on, meet
to
us here.
enforcement, then we're asking for the managers, other citizens to be the eyes and ears.
Well, on occupancy, I think it's the only option.
Chief said it's a complaint base.
A police officer.
As long as our
can't
city is
door and
complaint
count
based,
people inside.
they're not looking for it, it's complaint based.
So if somebody calls the short-term rental company and says, there's 20 people in this house, and there should
Be
be,
advised.
there should only be 10. The property manager goes out there. What do you do at that point?
Well, I would knock on the door and talk to them and say, what's going on, this property only sleeps this many people, oh, they're just visiting, I mean, they get that a lot.
Can you get on the phone, I mean, do you get people's telephone numbers, like who's contact, who's best contact?
Do you have a
Yeah,
list
we
of-
call them,
do you have
we
a list of, yes, so it's like it says, hey, 10 people, this is Bill, John.
No.
Sometimes they put in, to book on Verbo, you have to put a certain number, you go over the occupancy limit for that property, won't let you book it, so they back it back down, and then things change. I mean, occupancy is a very tough thing
Very
to
hard
do, because you can't just barge right in. We could, I guess, I could walk in and go, I want to look at everybody in here, everybody come out, let's check it out. But then I'm dealing
But
with.
the noise meter, that's what I'm getting at.
Excuse me,
The noise meter,
They're dealing
all
with,
their indicators.
they're dealing with the culture of Port A that created 12 and under, oh, they're not counted. Oh, no, we changed that rule. So these are some of the bases of the rules, the basic rules that we need to say. If they're breathing, they count.
Yeah.
It's not the old Port A where the city said 12, we said toddlers. We all had different rules, and so those rules need to be identified and make sure everybody understands they have changed. People have been coming here for years.
I'd like to say something there. First time we had a talk, Steve said we got him, thing we do is change the culture. And I think that's more than just a phrase. We're talking about that over a period of time, a couple of years, is getting people to understand that it's not an amusement park. And don't pay your under that you get to do anything you want. I think that's something, we've done with PR and whatever. But I think if the idea that's fair, we should keep it on our list. And start changing the culture. And get a lot of help.
And then we get the chamber involved, and that's just the message we start putting out.
And they're
Bring
working
your
on.
son to screen on your car, whatever, just something.
What about the trash? That's an easy one,
Yeah,
right?
trash, I mean, I think we
Started
all
there.
agree.
I had an idea about the occupancy out of the infrared thermometer. Sensor inside.
But trash, everybody agrees to.
I think so, at least during the peak season.
60
I don't know where there's
I think it should be based on bedroom.
Yeah, I think.
I think it definitely,
Well,
Like,
it
four
escalates.
and up needs to have more than.
Yeah, it needs to be scaled.
Yeah.
3 bedrooms, 2, 4 bedrooms, maybe 2, but 5 bedrooms, 3. And then I don't have a 1-6 bedroom, so
I would totally agree.
Yeah.
it's not a lot of.
So what
I
are you,
have
what are
a
you
fi-
thinking, 2 and then
So-
3, 4, 5 or more bedrooms?
I think that's fair, and then 6 bedrooms or more, so I've got a 6-bedroom and three cans actually work for that place, but while it's 6 bedrooms, we typically try to limit the amount of adults to 12 and then kids to 4, even though we advertise an occupancy of 60.
But I mean, you're probably one, you're
No.
probably
Trash is so.
two that actually does it that
We
way.
can't do it on.
Oh, I'm gonna say,
I mean, there have been times, heck, I had a rat video
Yeah,
shot of
you're
the
right.
cul-de-sac in front of
I
my
would
house.
make
So,
sure require
these guys all came from there.
That way
They're
you're not
not
having to
swinging,
pay for
and
it,
then
because I'm like.
But
6 to 3
they park in the
Palomino,
driveway.
5 bedroom,
I mean,
they have 4 cans, which is more than, but they pay that year round, that's expensive.
One of the things we talked about in our group was, I don't think a lot of people, owners especially in Port Aransas, know that they can turn the cans off as they need them.
Yeah. It's
You know, we do that on all of our HOAs. We turn the public services off to once a week versus twice a week. And then same thing can work with the toters. So we just need to have that set up where we can do that. I know it's gonna be a pretty big burden on, you know, the city to handle that.
Well, we can't do it on a week in, week out basis.
No.
You can do it on a seasonal.
Seasonal.
Yeah, so Memorial Day to Labor Day.
That's kind of what it's always been for the others, and so maybe we expand it a little further out, and then just have a charge that the city, some kind of a fee that says to change fee is $25. You know, that's probably
And that
about.
deters people from doing it. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So there's
I mean,
a, there's a
add on.
toter that says recycle, are those just extra lids or are they recycle?
They are experts. They get
Okay.
thrown in the trash. They get thrown in the.
They are?
Will be recycled.
I think
No,
they should-
they just have to
they
start doing, they sit in the trash.
They should be removed from short-term rentals.
Totally.
Yes.
All in favor?
Because they're trash or they're extra lids, but you gotta put your trash somewhere and you're gonna put it in that blue
Didn't
toter.
we have a recycle bin over here? At one time?
We had it at the
We had it at the-
school. Everybody put their trash in.
Yeah, so it got removed.
Yeah.
Because of that same problem.
I don't think you should have recycle in short-term rentals.
People-
We don't do glass, you gotta take it back to Austin. That's what we tell them. Take it back to Austin.
Why is it always?
So-
That's.
I think
that's
you're
who
all in
brings all the
agreement
glass.
on trash.
Yes, I do, yes.
They're the fancy areas.
You might want to look at lane striping or no parking on one side of the street to help the trash. Because I will tell you, what you were mentioning is critically important. Is if those cans cannot be assessed by the garbage, they are not going to be. They are literally, they will drive right by them. Okay?
So you
If
put all the
sit
cars
down
on one side?
and you leave it up, if you leave it open for cans, so the cans would be there only when they're picked up and they can easily get to them. It would also speed up the public job as well, simply because they can actually get.
Or designated.
On trash,
area where they-
Are we allowed to have, since we're not a dump, are we allowed to have a trash collection
We're going to
facility?
do that right now.
Okay,
Transfer.
that's what, that's transfer
You
station.
should also consider letting them use credit cards and turn credit cards off the cash or check in order to accept the trash.
Yes.
That might encourage more people to use it.
So I mean, at the
At
collection
the
station.
collection station, I don't do credit cards.
And maybe get a scale where you can do it by weight, not just by volume, because you have to pay up the nose to do that. Just saying. It's $200 for my dump trailer here, it's $60 in Corpus.
But, yeah. I've noticed it's pretty expensive, but I think my pickup, and it's $25.
But I mean, also we're a transfer station, so now we're paying to haul, we're paying Republic to move it from, they're a middleman over there.
I'm just saying, if you want more people to use local service and local trash, make it easier on them.
But the cities at the same time has
So the
to.
public can get it off the streets quicker.
Another issue that we get is that removal of the cans after they pick it up.
Yeah. That's a big one.
You gotta line up your,
Especially if we're gonna start to add more cans to the mix. There's gonna be something else that.
What do they got, 36 hours right now?
No, you can put it out sundown the night before, you gotta have it back by the next morning. So if your trash is picked up on Monday, I can put it out Sunday night, by Tuesday morning, it's gotta be back.
How many hours do you say?
Yeah, I guess about 30. It depends on what,
Or is this one?
sorry. It depends on what your definition of morning is. Or night.
You know, one thing that works really well on that is where the owners have to pay a service to move it. And it would be such a simple thing for different neighborhoods, HOAs, to have a resort fee that is pushed back through the property management company, whatever it is, 2% or whatever it is, they pick up that resort fee, because these Aransas Harbors picks up a 5% resort fee that pays for extra garbage, maintenance of the pool. So the HOAs could do that as well, like Village Walk does it. And they have a fee that you have to pay so many dollars per night, then you could actually pay a local person a new job to take the cans in and out. And we do that. We use contractors a lot of times for the trash cans, just because housekeepers getting around is very, very difficult or your maintenance people.
It seemed like most of the complaints from the public were just regular streets, not in HOAs, so.
Yep.
And I know as property manager, we have a system of cans go out, and at the end of the day, before we close, and then in the morning, we go around and we're bringing them in, as we see that they've been picked up, but I know some, I don't know, there's gotta be some companies that aren't doing it.
Good
And
question.
locals.
What is the current fine for leaving it out?
Well, it's set
It's the
by
same,
the judge,
yeah.
but it's.
The
About
two 250 plus the.
So it comes down to enforcement.
Is that the same fine if trash is left laying on the ground?
So maybe instead of telling people, hey, your trash can's out, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to move it in, we just ticket them. And then hopefully it will become a problem that becomes less and
We
less.
gotta give an hour, I mean, the way the rules are written now, we gotta give an hour to comply.
Oh, you do?
Now, we've talked about blowing trash and stuff like that. We think we can cite immediately.
So if if the lady that ran into one, I saw her in the meeting, if she calls and says, hey, there's trash cans in the street, the code enforcement officer then has to go contact those people and give them an hour to correct the
If it's a
issue.
short-term rental.
Wow.
Now,
And
if
if it's not a short-term rental, then I have to send them a letter.
So that's an issue right there. She should be able to just write a ticket.
If
Put it
there's
on
trash in
the
the
agenda.
streets, we can. Like,
Right,
if there's
but
stuff blowing,
it's
it's turned over, then all of a sudden, so if you see one that hasn't picked up, just kick it over.
Because I don't think that's fair for her to be the trash can police and have to go around telling people, hey, where's Johnny at? His trash can's out. I have to give him an hour to move the.
Well,
And then check back in.
No,
Well, we're starting, if it's chronic, then we're starting to say, okay, you got an hour, if that happens again, we're just gonna write.
That's the word of the hot spots. We're gonna
That
find
has to
out.
be quantified.
Yeah.
We're gonna find out.
Station Street.
Yeah.
Station Street.
And it's all STR's work also.
But you
local.
could write those, you can come down,
You're right.
it's not all SDR, and write them all day
Yes.
long.
Yeah,
Because
you don't
everybody,
have to-
everybody leaves on Monday, they put them out, trash is not till Wednesday at my house. And then it sits there from Monday to Wednesday, these people already gone home. And then
I disagree with you, because if you start writing them out, that won't happen.
They'll meet their neighbor.
That's exactly right. I mean, if you let it happen, they will do. 'Cause
well,
it's just
what
right.
happens is nobody bothers it, but you'll see they can all get picked up on Wednesday afternoon by a neighbor. That's just my street. And you see it, they're out there all week long after they leave on Sunday or Monday. But nobody, nobody does anything that makes trash blow so much or anything like that, but it's just a fact that happens.
We only have 10 minutes
I know.
to go over the most
So-
contentious topic. so.
Noise, did we need it?
Noise.
and-
Yeah, Chief actually did bring up some
Right.
things on noise. What he said was that the current noise policy requires a third party to complain and then be there when they police arrive at the location. And I don't want to paraphrase, but I will for you, Chief, and you can comment at the end, but his comment was that we need to rewrite the ordinance so that the police can directly issue a noise violation. So I don't know, I've heard comments from some other people saying, yeah, that's not gonna make a difference, so.
I think it will, because I mean, if they complain, they don't want to be, sometimes they don't want to be.
They don't wanna come back because they might have to appear in court.
Yeah. And, they don't want retaliation from, there's plenty of not retaliation.
So if we need to do that, then Rick, that needs to just be on our agenda.
Hey,
to
Chief.
update the ordinance.
Just make a note, you and I'll talk, and we'll get with David, and we'll craft the changes, we've talked about it before.
So moving on to item 3.2, enforcement, accountability, and responsibility regarding short-term rental issues.
All in
I know,
favor?
we've kind of been,
We got
I
10
think we
minutes.
need another minute.
I'd like to request that we stay with Republic Tax Service for another 10 minutes. We don't have to cover everything. I don't think we mentioned Republic, but we mentioned a collection station. What would the collection station be? Because I envision Republic being over here, picking up, filling up their machines and going to the dump and putting it in a transfer thing where they compact it or they grind it or whatever, and they don't have to go back and forth to Corpus all the time.
Well, that's a separate issue right
It
now.
is, and it's a challenge, I can tell you, I know it's being talked about, but I think it's just. it's gonna be
Okay, is there
real
any
difficult.
progress on that front? Because the public.
I'd say we move past that other solution right now. 'Cause
That's a citywide issue, not
Yeah,
just STR.
Yeah.
It's only gonna get worse with the construction of the bridge too.
So, but I mean, that honestly, that's a citywide issue, not,
but it's not an easily solved,
Right.
race.
yeah.
We've talked about it, and
I
I don't wanna get too much in the weeds here, but it's being discussed, but I can tell you, it's a big list, it's a big expensive list. to make
Okay, so
happen.
there's nothing new and there's no progress right now. And
There's
we
nothing-
probably-
there's nothing-
Our trash collection for the near term is gonna be the same as it is now.
and
As
this-
trucks improve, as they're able to get new trucks, keep in mind, we're in a situation where they haven't been able to get any trucks, they've been cobbling what they've had together.
But they're getting some in December.
Right.
They're getting some in a few months
Right.
later. I mean, they come in and.
Things are
pledge
changing,
it,
it's
so
called
we
part
can
of the
monitor whether they fulfill those pledges. or not.
Correct.
Okay, so as far as enforcement, I think all the groups we met, that was something that kept coming up. We have rules in place, we have a lot of good ordinances, and if we're not enforcing that, then what's the point of making new ones? Exactly.
So here's what I take out, it's just my thoughts here, okay? I think if the property managers and owners over the next, now through, let's say, Labor Day, can really show that there's improvement, we don't have to then do new ordinances. But if it doesn't get any better or stays the same, then ordinances, we would need to look at the ordinances in the fall. So kind of, I say we leave it in y'all's hands right now. Except for maybe the noise one, to, give you guys a chance to work this through.
That's fine, turn it up, Tim.
What?
We're gonna need the city's help,
Yeah, as
we're
far
gonna
as
need the
what's-
chamber's help,
Well,
we're
no,
gonna need the
as far as
messaging to make it
right,
happen.
no, I mean, the messaging part, I agree with, but I mean, as far as like us just carte blanche saying, okay, we need to put all these ordinances in place.
Right.
It's gonna take that long to analyze the data.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying,
You're just
so,
starting to
Right.
collect.
And
So
let
it's
the
your-
STR data.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, so that
Right.
gives us a decision, that gives us 9, well, I mean.
Well, you can't tell improvement. So you collect the data for a period of time, maybe that's 6 months or whatever.
But if we're.
And then you gotta measure it against what it was 6 months ago.
Right, but I mean.
Because we're going from zero data to now.
Right, but if we're still having the same number of complaints calling into the city.
But we don't know how
I
many.
mean, numbers there are.
Yeah, but I mean, I get them through email
Yeah.
and phone calls every week. I mean,
Wouldn't the
We're wondering
managers-
how many.
Log them in.
Same
No,
people
no.
over and over again.
No,
Is it
it's
different
all
people?
over.
I hear what you're
It's all
saying,
over.
but we can't let Facebook determine that we got
No,
a problem.
this is all actual phone calls or emails.
But is it 100 a week? Is it 3 a week?
It varies. This time of year is slow, but during the summer, it could be 10 or 15 a week.
When Republic misses
That's huge.
12
Oh,
things in sometime a whole week,
That's an issue.
that's a city issue because we can only empty trash cans and take them to the dump, and it's not fair to anybody that does, and the bill's the same.
exactly.
So, and you call, say they missed, and they'll let you know, but guess what? If they don't make it back the next day, they're not coming back. You just lost it. So those houses that have 5 toters that are full that get missed and have guests coming in, that trash has to.
But I don't think we've seen that, I think we had an isolated window where we had.
We had rain,
Problem
trucks broken.
broken, I don't think we've seen that since then.
I guess I would disagree, Rick. I think you're seeing the tip of the iceberg, because especially coming up with the bridge closure that's gonna be happening. And then with the additional people that are moving to the island, the additional number of rounds. I agree with you that it was a singular.
We haven't had it happen again, is all I'm saying, you're speculating
Well-
that it's a potential problem.
Sure, it is.
But it hasn't happened again.
And I think that they got the message, Republic, that we were not happy with what was going on.
And they had good explanation. I mean, they went through all the explanations, which were lauded.
No, I don't,
Still
I
have
don't
to
agree
take
with that. I
it.
mean, because, again, they said, oh, this hit us by surprise. And I'm like, what the hell? I mean, you've been collecting all that extra money for how long?
Yeah,
Yeah, so we,
but they can't but then they said,
they're down trucks, they're down drivers.
That's correct, you're right.
So-
That part is getting better.
okay.
So
I like-
Tim's point was, we wanted to have data-driven decisions, and
So
Understand the
what I'm
road.
taking out of this is, we do want two ordinances. One, the trash odor ordinance put in place.
Yeah.
I think we're all agreeing with that, correct? And then a noise ordinance where the chief can just do it without having the
Yes,
third party, is that correct?
yes, I agree with all that.
So is there anything else?
And collect data and enforce.
Well, I mean,
those that
what
are
that
on
is,
the
that's gotta start happening in January.
When you talk about enforcing rules around the books, that's the big thing, is enforcement. You
Yeah.
know, is it all following on the management companies? Are we going to have, I mean, because I feel like a lot of the problems happen on the weekends and, you know, we're closed, we have to have days off, I understand. But is there a plan in place to have
You
maybe
need to have
someone?
the city
We're
code
looking to-
enforcement added so that it matches the
Yes.
problematic days.
Yes,
Having somebody here, no offense, but you know, during the week, it's not help on the week, right? Now going to this clearing house will help because they'll have a conduit in.
Like the key component to the
But I
RFP.
agree.
Complaint portal.
Yeah, having nobody to call on Saturday or something.
So having somebody to call, once you collect the data, you're gonna say, hey, let's adjust our code enforcement to work Wednesday through
I don't even
Sunday.
think we need
Or
to
let's
wait
hire
to get data.
additional.
Do we?
We're looking for.
Harvey, you know what the issues are, right?
We're dealing with.
No, I'm just saying.
We may not be working, but we're working
You may
complaints
not
on the
We
see
should
me
not be
here all the
expecting-
time, but
Okay.
I'm working.
She knows where the problems are.
Right, and having, hopefully having the additional code enforcement officer in our heart will take a lot of burden off of Carlisle. You know, so we can have, I guess, better coverage.
well, and the software program
Right, so
where they call, there's someone answering 24/7, right? Even on Saturday at 2 in.the morning, someone will answer the phone and they're going, there's a, like you said, okay, this is managed by this company, they're gonna reach out to us. And hopefully that will help, because right now, members of the community, everything is complaint driven, they're sending emails, but you may not see it right away, at least this might help kind of get rid of some of the issues and nip it in the bud at the time it's happening.
So there's two things the city can do, but then I think the STRs need to be working on a code of conduct. 'Cause I don't wanna personally be the city to have to do that. That's something that you all probably need to sit down, come up with a code of conduct amongst yourselves, you know.
Well, we're gonna need the
It
city
needs to go on
to
the city
define
website.
it, and then up to individual companies to come behind and say, we're with the city on this, and we're gonna
So
enforce.
you think we should come up with a code of
Well, if you
conduct?
don't, there's gonna be property management companies that say, that's not a big deal, I'm not gonna do it. And
So
then,
we need to require then you guys to.
well, I think we also have to, you look at that noise thing, that is a huge gray
Right.
area. So we need to understand how the police will enforce it, you know, because I'll promise you, you're gonna get a call from the neighbor below a condo at Aransas Harbor saying the 2-year-old's making too much noise at 10 o'clock at night.
All right, tell you what, let's do this. Do we want to reconvene in 2 weeks to continue this? Because I think we still have some more things to work out and probably we're out of time.
Yeah.
So,
To me, it's too important to rush.
right, that's what I'm saying. So
We're in a slower time, we got time.
we got time right now, so I say we reconvene in 2 weeks from today, unless it's an issue. The same time.
Think of what the code of conduct.
Yeah, I mean, so we can start working on some of this. I mean, this, my opinions only. Are you all in agreement that we need to
So
continue?
let's put some straw man polls together, at least one, maybe the companies can come up with, I can put something together. Code of conduct.
Yeah,
I mean, they're out there.
we've been
Like
doing
Fish,
several.
Montana.
Yeah, and there's a good neighbor
Basically,
pamphlet out there.
Okay, that's the whole.
So I say let's plan 3 o'clock in 2 weeks from today, unless there's an objection.
That code of
On
conduct is
the
also.
9th of
citizens and
November.
stuff where-
Yes.
I mean, is that okay with
That can
the
clean
city?
up Facebook.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
that way we
makes sense for me.
Because I do think it's important enough that we need to continue the conversation. I mean, I hope I'm not upsetting you.
No, yeah, no, I agree.
Okay.
I don't want to, I've been saying this the whole time, I don't want to rush into making all of these
Chief, anything?
decisions without really looking at it.
There you go.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay.
All right,
I would say, Tim, I don't.
Feel better.
We can't start working on like getting the noise ordinance changed.
Right, and again, trash, we
And
can do those, I think,
those
sure.
can get done, check off.
Right,
Okay, are there any comments and
Chief,
items?
when you feel better, come in, we'll talk about the noise.
Well, I'd like to make a comment, is that the experts on this thing are the managers. I think we have property and we deal with this stuff on a daily basis, that's where a lot of the solutions are gonna come. I'm just giving you a little ad.
Mhm. All right.
Just remember who we don't have represented, I don't think, he's self-made.
Yeah, and Mike,
Yeah.
yeah.
I do all my own.
Yeah, so I mean,
All my wife does.
yeah, but I mean, it's you.
Okay, if there's nothing else, move to adjourn. This
Thank you,
meeting,
guys.
okay,
Thank you.
October 26th at 4:30.
Nothing good?
How's it going?
Let's do it.
Let's get it.
Fine.
Okay.
Technical, right?